How's it going, everybody?
You know who it is.
My name is Sanwoo, and in today's video I want to talk about the importance of simplicity in beat making. Alright, so you heard the first beat, and now we're gonna take a look what this beat is made out of and why I think it's important to keep things simple. So let's hear all the parts of it in full. You can hear that it sounds like there's actually quite a lot going on in this beat, but that actually isn't the case, because I am only using 3 of the groups that I have available. So the first one, let's start with this. A super simple pattern, which is made up of this sound, which I have pitched and then played, and then 1 octave down. So I'm only playing these notes. As simple as it gets, nothing complicated, a very, very simple pattern. And then on top of that, I have put another sample, this one here. So this is just some tape hiss, which I downloaded somewhere off the net for free, tape hiss samples. And just to give this more of a texture, and this I'm doing in part because I like the aesthetics of the sound. And on top of that, if, for example, I only play this group on its own in a performance, it could sound quite sterile if I'd only be playing this sample. Because it's quite clean, and then the rest of the pattern is empty. So yeah, it just might sound a little bit boring if I play it like this, with only this sound. But if I bring in the tape, it fills up the space a little bit and brings you in more of a mood, I would say. So this is a nice trick that I like using lately when focusing on the KO2 and working with minimal groups. If I want to mute other tracks and only highlight a certain group, then I try to make sure that I have something in this group that fills out the space in the background. So if the group is playing on its own, it doesn't sound too boring. And I think the tape hiss does it in this case. So that's group number 1, or rather group D. Then next group, let's mute this. Bassline. Also very, very simple. The only thing that I'm doing here to alter the sound in any way is using filters, for example, the low pass filter. So you can hear that there's quite a lot of high end in this bass sample. And because I don't want it to collide too much with the other high-end material that I have, I make use of the low-pass filter. So keeping things easy for yourself, is important. So try to separate your samples with the tools that you have. So in this case, we've got a low pass and a high pass filter, which is very good, and I try to use them whenever applicable. And because in this group, in group B, I only have a bass, it makes sense to cut out the high end in order for there to be room that my other high end elements that need to be high in frequency can work with. So yeah, low pass filter. Just filters out all the unnecessary material. And then again with the previous group. And we can also always adjust the low pass filter. To exactly sound the way we want it to. So these are the first two groups. And then most of the material is going on in group A. So here we have our basic drums, which again, they could sound boring on their own, but they have this percussion sample underneath with the talking in the background, which I don't know whether or not I'll get a copyright strike here, so this might be cut out, just so you know. Anyway, this is the sample. This is actually how this beat started out, using this sample. And then this sample in the background really fills out all the drums and gives it just a lot more feeling and, yeah, a context for the drums to live in. And the drums itself, the pattern is very simple. So again, keeping things simple is very important because you want your main idea to shine and you don't want to have to add little flourishes everywhere just to make it somewhat listenable. The basic idea, the foundation of your beat should be a solid one, and then everything else is just extra. In terms of the drums, what I did to make them more interesting, again, let's listen to just the drums without the percussion. A very simple technique that I used here is that this snare drum versus this, they are different because the first time around I play two sounds at once and the second time only one. So it goes. And this slight variation just gives you enough bounce so, you know, you can nod your head back and forth instead of always hitting the same way. I think this makes beats very interesting, and it's something that I often use, and I think many people use this, that you just vary your snare between the first snare and the second snare in some way to make it more interesting. Very simple technique, but very useful. Yeah, and as you saw, 1, 2, 3 groups that I'm using make up this beat. And of course, you could add something to this, and I might add something in group C. my point is that there doesn't need to be anything else. To me, this beat already sounds quite full, and if you rapped on top of this, I'm sure this could pass as a song in some way. Might not be the best beat ever, but it's definitely serviceable. And that's the point I want to get across. It doesn't need to be the fanciest beat ever. It's good if it is a loop that you can listen to for a long time, because if you want to get rappers on there, they need to listen to that stuff on repeat to write their lyrics, and the simpler, the better. So, with that being said, let's move on to another beat and see what we can explore here. Alright, this beat is more up my alley. I like all this kind of moody stuff, and as you probably have noticed if you've watched my channel for a longer time, I like vocal chops in the background. So let's start with the drums this time. You can hear, again, a very simple pattern, same technique used of first snare drum this, second snare drum that. And I'm using two different snare sounds on top of one another, and then only one. So these are my sounds, and on top of that, you can also hear once again, I have a tape sample. So in order to not have these drums too dry when I play them on their own, again, just some hiss. I could take it down a notch even, but it's just to illustrate. This really fills out the beat and makes the drums on their own less boring. Which of course is cool if you want to perform live with this and want to just mute the groups on the fly and play around with them. It's good to have groups that sound interesting on their own rather than somehow sounding too bland when you play them on their own by accident. Another technique that I used here in the drums is throwing the fader up. So I've assigned the fader to the effects, and I've recorded an automation every time the snare drum hits. The fader is going up on the first snare. So I've recorded that. And that also fills out a lot of space by the delay decaying over time. It just keeps repeating the snare drum and makes things more interesting. Alright, let's listen to the next group. Also, couldn't get any simpler. Bass line, that's it. So, drums and bass line together. That's already a groove. Then we listen to this group and get to that one later. So this one, again, you can hear this is so simple. It's just one sample which started this beat, and I'm playing it twice at the same pitch. Then I go down in pitch and play it twice again. So what? Let's see. Where do we got it? Oh yeah, here. That's what's happening. And then and this sample I didn't time stretch at all, so this means at the higher pitch it's playing slightly faster, and at the lower pitch it's playing slightly slower. So this means that the notes, these little twinkles that are played within this sample, will fall on different hits on my drums because they are going in and out of sync. So that's quite interesting. Let's play them with the drums together. And normally you would probably think that that doesn't work in some way because not everything is exactly aligned. But I think in this case, it gives the beat its feel of the laziness that sometimes things are hitting this way, sometimes they are hitting that way, which makes the beat more interesting in my opinion. I could have also gone ahead and just time stretched the sample and it would be the same speed in both pitches. But this way, to me, it hits better and makes the beat much more interesting. So sometimes keeping things simple, again, is very nice and can add a lot more liveliness, just using the most basic techniques at your disposal, pitching things around and seeing what fits or making things fit. Again, let's add the bass as well. Just a simple, rough and dirty beat. And then let's listen to the last group. So with this sample, I had much longer vocals that I tried to chop up and basically use all the parts of the sample. But in the end, I had to do what's best for the beat, and I decided to just use the tiniest of the chops and pitch that around to make it work in my beat rather than forcing somehow using all of the sample and a lot of different chops. Again, I kept it simple, used this slice and pitched it around. Using only 3 notes. Of course, you can hear there's a lot of delay added, so again, I'm just using the fader and sending it to the delay effect. And now let's hear it again with everything. So there's nothing magical about this. There are no fancy techniques involved at all, but just the right selection of samples and not overdoing things goes a very long way in my opinion. And then make use of what you have. Most of these groups will be filtered in some way. The vocals are definitely filtered. So for example, here you can see what kind of automations or what changes I have active at the moment. If I didn't filter the sample, it would take up a lot more space. And I also noticed something that it's panned right at the moment. That must be a mistake because I'm sure if I wanted to pan this, I would probably do it in a different way, which again comes to the point of using what you have at your disposal. So the panning automation could be useful for this sample. as I could have it bounce around left to right maybe. Something like that. Yeah, that's it so far. I'm sure I probably repeated myself quite a lot in this video, but I just wanted to give you some ideas of the techniques that I employ when making beats, and yeah, just trying to show to the beginners of you out there that there's really nothing special about creating beats like this. It's just practice, 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 and not overthinking things and using what you have. You don't need more than a simple sampler to make a good song. And yes, keep it simple, don't overthink, leave some room for the rapper, and enjoy. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching the video. If you want to learn more about the KO2, about music making in general, check the playlist over there or contact me for private online lessons, link down in the description. I hope to see you in the next video, and let's spit some bars on top of this beat and have a good time. Peace! Yeah, check this. Booyaka. Yeah. Lordi Lord und der gottverdammte Sohn am Beat machen Mucke, haben Hunger, so wie Mosambik. Totaler Krieg wie im Sportpalast. Nach jedem Gig unter Mordverdacht wie ein Orca-Wal, jede Zeile ist Killer. Ich geb den ganzen Zombies Blei, so wie Miller, Mann. Ich heiße nicht Michael, doch schreib einen Thriller, vergleichbar mit Diller, denn keiner ist iller. Ich hab die Cypher am Pillar, denn all die anderen nur paar Pfeifen wie Triller. Nur dicke Lippe, doch die meisten nur Filler. Sie sind weicher als weich, sie sind Eis wie Vanilla. Ich so heiß wie Godzilla, immer wenn ich Feuer spit. Monster am Mic, Junge, das wird ungeheuerlich. Monster am Mic wie die UFC. That's the motherfucking difference between you and me. Booyaka.